All right, we are here with my VermiHut indoor worm tower, and today we're going to do a few things. We're going to add a dry inoculating tray to the bottom. We're going to check on our apple versus mango experiment, and then the main thing we're going to do right now is we're going to dissect this lid and see what's inside of it. So let me get some stuff out of the way here and we'll do that. All right, so let's open the lid. And first thing you'll notice is there's a few worms on here, but right inside the VermiHut, I had put some watermelon because it has been 16 days since I was in here last. So I just want to get them some food, but we'll get to them in a minute. They just kind of make sure that they're not going to crawl out. But this lid is what I wanted to concentrate on. So when you purchase a VermiHut, it comes with a 3-part lid. You have the main lid here itself. You have what they call a V-board, which is just a piece of plastic, and inside that is a coconut mat. So when I first got this, I would take this thing apart every couple weeks and see if any worms had gotten into the coconut mat, and sure enough, worms are very curious. They were all up in there, and then I would take the worms out individually and put them in here, and they would leave some castings in there, and it just kind of drove me nuts. Like, I thought it should be a clean situation. Well, it has been 8 or 9 months because that just got to be a lot of work, and it just wasn't worth it. So I'm going to go ahead and take this lid apart, and you can see it's got these tabs right here that keep this plastic V-board in. And this may be a little messy, which is why I have the blue tarp down here. But I'm just going to kind of get this out. All right, so I have not seen this in about 8 or 9 months. So let me pull this out and see what we've got going here. All right, so you can see they've deposited tons of castings, and they have kind of gone through and actually eaten part of this mat. If I were to pull this or slide this over, I'll try and flip it upside down, or maybe I won't. I don't know. It's really falling apart. When it started, it was all the way around, filled in all the space, and it has been a year and a half that this has been in here. So if you're wondering how long does the mat last, a year and a half, and this is what we're at right now. It's a very great system because it has these little air holes, and then it has the mat, and then it has this board. So I've never had fruit flies get in here, and I've never had problems with air not being able to get into my VermiHut. So I really do like this system. But if you're one of these people that would want to get in here and clean this up, which probably a lot of people did at first till they realized, like I did, that it just doesn't matter, then this lid may be a little off-putting to you. I think we're good. I'm just gonna keep going and letting it stay in here probably for another 6 months. I looked on their website, and these mats to replace them were about $5.50. I'm sure shipping is more, that kind of thing. But then I also went on Amazon to see if you could get coconut mat like this, and you can. Probably at a hardware store too, and then you could just trim it if you wanted to put that back up in here. So what I'm gonna do is kind of clean this off into here, reassemble this, and then we'll get to feeding my VermiHut. So I cleaned off that plastic V-board, so there's a little bit of those castings that were on there and here, but let's go ahead and get to our feeding and see what's left of the apple versus mango. Now, like I said, it had been 16 days and we were going out of town, so I threw some watermelon rinds in here about 3 days ago, or 2 days ago, and you can see that they absolutely love watermelon. So they probably enjoyed the fact that they got a little treat after they most likely got through the apple and mango. In fact, there's like a little worm ball right under that watermelon. That is awesome. And then here's another one. When I lifted that lid, they all kind of scurried away. But we'll add this to the feeding zone. Oh yeah, here we go. Look at that. Another worm ball. And these look like mostly blue worms, maybe a few red wigglers. There's the end of a red wiggler right there with his little orange tail. But in here is a mix of red wigglers and blue worms. Now, here's a really good example of worm castings. My brother was just over a little while ago, and he said, so what is a casting? What is it when you say worm castings? And the worm casting is just the poop. They eat the food, and out the back of them comes a little piece of what almost looks like soil. and that is worm castings. So let's go ahead and put this to the side, and then let's dig in. So I think we went mango, apple, or apple, mango, but let's go ahead and go right down the center and see if we see anything. Maybe we'll see some of the apple skin or mango skin. Certainly we're gonna see the mango seed. And right here, this to me looks like the apple skin from one of the apple halves that we had in here. And the apple halves were frozen and then put in here, and the mango was fresh, or I should say overripe. Although on the camera, it looked like I could have eaten it. In fact, I got a couple comments about that. But normally I do not put in food just to experiment with the worms. I put it in because it's not consumable for humans. So here is the mango seed, and there are still a little bit of fibers attached to it, very dry fibers, very like fibery or very tough. But they've gotten all the flesh off the seed, so we'll see where that goes. You can see they are just embedded in it, absolutely digging it, so to speak. All right, let's keep going in here. Some more fibers, I think, from the lettuce. That's right, we put lettuce underneath, and then we put the remains of the apple and mango. So I think technically we could still say the mango won. Again, it's been 16 days, so for sure we don't know the exact day that, okay, mango was all gone. But here's the other apple skin, and either a little bit of flesh left or worms left. I'm not sure which, but they are also still digging inside of it, so that's good. Let's look for the other mango piece, which I doubt we're gonna see any part of that. It was the half that didn't have the seed in it. We also put down bedding, and they seem to have gone right through that bedding. So the combination of the juices and the food really made them eat the bedding as well. So that's something to note there, is that you want to put bedding down and food down because they need it both in order to make some good castings for you. In fact, if you just fed food, the worms would eat it, but I think your bin would get really sour and acidic and not do as well. And if you only had cardboard, same thing, it wouldn't do as well. They'd eat it at first, and then they'd be kind of fleeing looking for food. So you want to add cardboard and food at every feeding. That's what I do. I'm going to go ahead and mix around here because last time we didn't. So I'm just going to go through the whole bin real quick. All right, so as I went through here, this bin looks like it is mostly castings, which is great. A little bit of this newspaper that we threw under a few feedings ago. But for the most part, lots of castings, and the volume is getting higher and higher, which is great. It has been the top feeding tray for 37 days. And before that, for 85 days, it was just a inoculating tray, which is what you saw at the very beginning, just a bunch of shredded cardboard and paper put on the very bottom and allowed to have the juices and stuff from the trays that I have above this to drip on it. So, you know, only 37 days of feeding, and we're going to get it up to 60 before we put it underneath. But there are going to be some fantastic castings in here. The other thing I noticed was there are just a lot of worms. So, you know, this is the top tray right now. There are two underneath it. So I would say the majority of the worms are up here. Now, certainly, no matter what you do in all of your trays, there's going to be worms just like there were in that lid. So if you have one of these, you know, don't be upset or worried if you see worms in the other trays, and you don't have to feed them. Some people do. Some people feed all their trays all the time, that kind of thing. I only feed the top. But no matter what, there's going to be worms all over. They're very curious creatures. All right, let's go ahead and set down some cardboard, and then we will start our feeding. So I didn't get around to shredding all the cardboard that I wanted. So we're going to put a few of these toilet paper rolls and paper towel rolls in here. And then we'll put a little bit of shreddings on top here. It's been a while since I put straight toilet paper rolls into this bin. In the outdoor bin, I think I just did it, but it's been a while. I usually like to shred those up. All right, so there we go. Let's go ahead and put some of this leftover stuff in here. And then from there, we're going to add some fresh food for them. And there we go. So yeah, about, what, 37 minus 60, 23 days or so. We are going to put this underneath and take one of our trays from underneath that's been inoculating for about 60 days, and we'll put that on top and start feeding that. And the one that's right below here is the oldest tray, and that one is going to be the one that we harvest. So my mom's been giving us some of her food scraps, and this is guava. I've never put guava in a worm bin, so we'll see how it does. I wonder if it's going to be more like an apple and take a little bit longer to, you know, get consumed by the worms. So this will be a first for me. See how that does. And then I'm going to give them some banana peels here. These are a little bit slower foods. The banana itself is a fast food, but the peel probably takes about 3 or 4 weeks to be completely gone. And then this little stem might be here by the time we harvest still. And then we'll give them one little strawberry top and a couple of apples, and that will be their feeding. And then next I like to put some amendments down, and this is just some pulverized oats that we had expired in our pantry. I like to take anything that I have expired and try and add it to my worm bin. I also like to use my spent coffee grounds, and I add those to the worm bin. It's just a food source for them, finely ground so they can, you know, eat it much quicker than if you were to just put a straight up coffee bean in. And then we'll add some pulverized eggshells. This is grit for them. They have gizzards. That's how they digest and grind their food, so it gets smaller. It also adds some calcium to my garden and helps to buffer the pH in the worm bin. So we'll go ahead and bury this up, and in addition to burying it up, I'm also going to add some pulverized oats on the top just to kind of do a top feeding. And instead of newspaper, I'm going to add a brown grocery bag to the top. One of the commenters had suggested that after I was caught short and didn't have a newspaper on one of my feedings to put on top. So I'm just going to kind of see how the brown grocery bag does over the top of this and see if they eat it kind of like they do the newspaper when I put the worm chow or the pulverized oats on top. So let's go ahead and do that. As I put these pulverized oats on, it's just important to not mat them down. I've put too much in one spot and the worms just kind of avoid that and it gets matted down. So just kind of lightly sprinkle if you're gonna put some kind of worm chow or pulverized grains in. So there we go. I just cut up a piece of grocery bag, put that on top, and you can probably tell, I don't know if you can, two-dimensional on the screen, but there's a large hump right here, and then it goes down on both ends. So we'll see when we come in if this kind of sinks down. And the last thing we're going to do is put on a fourth tray, and this is going to go on the very bottom. This is completely dry, cardboard shreds, paper shreds, and actually I did some cereal boxes and some boxes that's had some kind of shinier top to them. I've done that in the past. It takes the worms a little bit longer to get through them, but they do. Like this little piece right here, this little orange piece, a little waxy on the top, but they eventually get to it. It just takes longer. So I figured, you know what, this is probably going to be in the VermiHut for about 180 days. So they'll have plenty of time eventually to get through it. So instead of taking it all apart and putting it back together, I've got several videos on that. We'll just do some movie magic and put this below. 1, 2, 3. So there we go. We are completely finished. We now have 4 trays on the VermiHut, and all we have to do is put on the lid, but I'll do that off camera. So I hope everybody's having a great day. I hope you all are doing well with your worm bins. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.